Tate Martell ascended to prep football fame faster than almost anybody ever has. And if Johnny Manziel was the last rock star quarterback, then Tate Martell was the first social media quarterback. Pretty much his entire rise through the ranks was well documented, a well-crafted image of a potential young star. But when you gather up the largest possible audience to watch you rise, be careful how you behave in that spotlight, cause them same people gonna line right back up to watch you fall. My name is FlemLo Raps, and this is what happened to Tate Martell. Choo Wayne.
Yeah, you'll never no quitter, cause I'ma go get her.
So Tate Martell grew up in San Diego and started playing Pop Warner football when he was 7 years old. From the outside looking in, it would appear that football would become the sport that Tate would use to gain what he actually coveted most: the spotlight. Now, it was actually unclear when his love for the spotlight manifested itself. Maybe it came as a consequence of being his dad's oldest son, or maybe he fell in love with the sensation after achieving a small taste of it during his early Pop Warner days. Now, Tate's original position is actually one that's generally shrouded in darkness at that age. So in the very beginning, they had my dude playing offensive line, but as his athleticism began to shine through, they moved him up from offensive line to tight end, then from tight end to wide receiver, and eventually they realized, bro, this kid needs to touch the ball every single play. So you know what that means. QB1, baby. Yes, sir. The attention and accolades came pouring in almost immediately, mostly from parents of the other kids. They was all impressed with how dude was throwing the ball at such a young age. He had a natural cannon. Before he even left elementary school, Tate's goals began to take shape. But because he was such a young kid, his goals might have been a little bit misguided. So every young quarterback wants to one day earn a college scholarship. I mean, this is a necessary step in the process to become a pro. And I'm sure he couldn't process all this stuff back then. He was just too young. But Tate's specific goals seem to be geared more towards gaining as much attention as quickly as possible for something that he did well, as opposed to actually honing that skill and eventually becoming an NFL caliber quarterback. It's actually not uncommon at all for kids to have motivation that are strictly superficial. Lots of kids want to become certain things once they become adults so that they can get that big house, a nice car, or so they can get the girl, whatever. We've all done it. But what I've noticed over time is that if those goals and motivations don't evolve and mature as you get older, you end up seeing a lot of guys crash and burn pretty quickly once they achieve that superficial goal. Because once you get there, you expect to feel a certain way. And when you still feel empty inside, you realize that your goal was shallow all along. And that type of achievement won't really fulfill you in any meaningful way. So that's the reason I'm pinpointing what I think are the origins of Tate's goals, at least based on what we can glean from public information. His goals didn't seem to evolve at the rate they should have, and that's kind of the underlying factor in how his career has gone. So while I do believe that, of course, a young Tate wanted to one day be an NFL quarterback, I think at that time especially, trying to gain that spotlight probably took precedence as the #1 goal. There's a set time you have to wait before you can become an NFL quarterback, but attention, clout, fame, the spotlight, you can get that a hell of a lot faster. Instant gratification is a beast that literally comes for us all. So when dude was just in 5th grade, he came across an article about a kid named David Seals. Now, if you don't know who David Seals is, then you simply haven't been subscribed to the channel long enough. Back at the very top of 2018, I dropped a video about a kid named David Seals. It was titled, "What Happened to the 13-Year-Old Who Got a Scholarship Offer to USC?" Till this day, one of my more popular videos. And it's still a banger, bro. I'll actually link it at the end of this if y'all want to check it out. But David Seals, like the title suggests, was a 13-year-old quarterback who way back in 2010 was actually offered a full scholarship by then USC head coach Lane Kiffin. There was a crazy media frenzy, and this kid was thrust into a spotlight that he could never quite live up to. Despite that, David, at least after switching positions, had a solid college career and at least got a look in the NFL. As a matter of fact, he just re-signed to the Giants practice squad a few days ago as of the time of me writing this video, March 11, 2022 for the latecomers. But when a young Martell came across this article, and I'm not sure who put this article in front of him, but when he came across it, he got excited in a way that he had not been excited before. He was amped. This was it. This was his path to stardom. So this was the point where he really kind of started to rush the process, you know? Here's a quote. "Oh, a 7th grader commits to USC?" And at first I was like, what the heck? That's crazy. And I remember saying, that's my goal. Tate's dad even enlisted the help of renowned quarterback coach Steve Clarkson to train Martell up. Same guy that coached David Seals, by the way. Now, ultimately, Martell's offer came 1 year later than Seals, as Tate was 14 years old when he got his offer from the Washington Huskies. He may have slightly missed the stated goal, but the attention that he admittedly loved so much came rushing in at lightning speed, and Tate reveled in his newfound celebrity. Now, Tate's parents took a lot of heat at this time as well, as his dad was literally compared to Tate Martell. For those of y'all who don't know who Tate Martell is, I'm explaining in a second, but this is not the parent you want to be compared to, right? See, Tate Martell was a quarterback from way back in the day who was basically bred from the time he was a small kid to be the quote-unquote perfect quarterback. The newspapers called him Robo QB. When I say Ty's dad didn't allow him to be a kid, I mean, bro, this man was on a strict workout regimen, a strict meal plan, couldn't go play with the other kids. Like, his whole life was geared toward, I'm talking about from the time he was a little boy, was geared towards him becoming the perfect quarterback, never taking into account what the hell Todd actually wanted to do. And while it does seem like Martell Tate was kind of shoved into a certain direction once his parents kind of saw the talent that he had, it was nowhere near on the level of a Tate Martell, so that comparison is completely unfair if we being real. Here's a quote from Tate's parents. "If he didn't get in the car, we weren't gonna make him go. You let them figure out stuff because that's what you're supposed to do. Their life is not about me. I'm here to help them." Now, does that mean that was perfect parents? Of course not. But look, I got a son, and I'm gonna tell you right now, parenting is some hard shit. And these kids don't come with no damn owner's manual, and they all different. So really your best based on who you are, how you was raised, and all that type of stuff, it's really just all you can do. You know, once Tate committed to the University of Washington, the news of a 14-year-old committing to a college program to play quarterback obviously spread like absolute wildfire. And despite what I just said, it is very difficult to imagine that the adults in his life did not know that this would happen. And it's not like Tate was against it. I mean, he wanted the spotlight. But again, he was a young kid and likely didn't understand like everything that came with his new status. You know, the pros and the cons. But when asked about the downsides that came with committing at such a young age, here's what Tate's dad had to say. Here's a quote from a USA Today article posted back in 2017. "I wouldn't say there's no downside. It's all just propaganda." He then goes on to say, as that same USA Today article paraphrases, he thought that because David Seals, and there's that name again, but because David Seals committed to USC at such a young age, that Steve Sarkisian was interested in making a splash as well. And I actually believe Steve Sarkisian was connected with USC in some way when that happened. But then his dad continued as he pretended to be Steve Sarkisian for a second. Okay, let me see. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get ESPN, I'm gonna get Fox, I'm gonna get everybody talking about this. Then Tate's mom chimes in. They were, in seconds. It was unreal. Now, when I was reading through this, I can't lie, I was just thinking like, y'all didn't know this as well? I mean, of course they knew, because not only is it common sense, but you gotta remember Tate was working with the same quarterback coach that David Seals was working with. So that guy has been through this process. And I find it really hard to believe that you got that resource hidden right there and y'all haven't had conversations about this, you know? I actually think it's pretty likely, and to be very, very clear, this is me speculating, but I think it's pretty likely that that was a huge part of the reason they hired quarterback coach Steve Clark at that time, so that they can get connected with these schools early and get Tate that early scholarship. Just listening to Tate's dad for a brief moment on the QB1 show, I could tell he was a pretty strategic guy, probably about everything, but especially when it came to mapping out Tate's football career. That's not like a knock or something that's inherently bad, but because of that, I found it kind of funny when they seemed to kind of play a little bit dumb in this situation. But either way, I just hope they sat down and had a good talk with Tate himself about what he could expect on the negative side. So a lot of people know that Tate ended up attending 3 colleges before it was all said and done. And ironically enough, during his high school days, the same exact thing ended up happening. Kinda. Another thing that was kind of criticized at the time, but you'll see in a second, it actually works out pretty well for him. So he left his hometown high school after leading them to a 4-7 record as a freshman. As opposed to building there, Tate and probably his dad decided to jump over to powerhouse Bishop Gorman. We talking about a school who had just won their 5th straight state championship at the time. Now with a bigger program, as Tate got older, his profile continued to grow, and for a while his play on the field was actually keeping pace with that, if not surpassing it. Following his sophomore season at Bishop Gorman, Tate decommitted from Washington after the school made a predictable coaching change and better, more high-profile offers started to come his way. In 2015, Tate committed to Texas A&M and looked to follow in the footsteps of a guy whose blueprint he had followed pretty closely in Johnny Manziel. Actually, the similarities between these two is pretty damn striking. They both seem to come from a bit of money. They're very flashy, in your face, dual threat playmakers who were both undersized, and had Tate actually gone to Texas A&M, who knows how things might have turned out. But he ended up decommitting from them after he visited Ohio State. This of course led to some backlash, and it even led to one of Texas A&M's coaches going on a whole Twitter rant about selfishness and leadership. Pretty ironic from a dude bashing a kid online because he decided not to attend your school. He tried to play the old when you make a commitment you stick to it card and this generation is blah blah blah, but funny enough he didn't have a single issue with Tate Martell decommitting from Washington to come to A&M. Oh, that was different though, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, you can feel however you want, but getting emotional and running to Twitter to diss a kid that no longer wants to come to your school is pretty weak. He even tried to claim that it wasn't about Martell. He just so happened to tweet this the same day Martell decommitted, and these dudes talk about accountability. I had to point this out because I think it's trash, and apparently a few other recruits felt the same way, as other high-profile recruits decided that based off that Twitter rant, they no longer wanted to attend Texas A&M either. Good job, coach. Now, even though I strongly disagree with the way that one coach handled the situation, I do feel like going to Texas A&M may have actually benefited Tate Martell more than it hurt him. But you gotta remember, these are kids, and he's going to $1 billion institution in Ohio State, and they're literally giving him their best possible sales pitch. Grown men get got every day by good salesmen, and it kind of seemed like that's what happened to Tate Martell. We know he wanted to flash and he wanted the spotlight, and I'm pretty sure the good recruiters at Ohio State figured that out, and just like on the video game, they appealed to what the recruit wanted most, and they ended up stealing them away. At the time, I'm sure Tate felt good about his decision, but as we'll discuss later in the video, going to the biggest, baddest school in Ohio State, that actually may have been a little bit of a short-sighted decision. Now, I don't really follow it like I did back when I was closer to that age. I honestly just don't care as much anymore, but commits and decommits is prime content on social media. And every time Tate did it, that hype continued to grow. He would gain more fans and he would gain more haters. But either way, that attention meter, it was filling up. And if attention is what you actually after, is all really the same. You ever hear all press is good press? That cliche does apply in this situation. But the hype may have actually hit the ceiling in 2017. That's when Tate appeared on the Netflix show QB1 Beyond the Lights, yet another show I've covered on this channel. In this show, people got a closer look at Tate and his family, as they were easily the most controversial of season 1. And to be honest, they kind of came across like they were auditioning for a full-time reality show when this thing ended, but I gotta give them credit for being authentic and being pretty damn entertaining to watch. And I'll admit, it kind of painted them in a certain way, but was the portrait an accurate portrayal, or was it more of like caricature work? We don't know. But with all of that said, one thing we can objectively see with our eyes is the on-field fruits of Tate's labor. No matter what you might think about the dude, he flat out got it done at Bishop Gorman, and that's facts. Okay, I'm gonna run down the list. Check this out. As a sophomore in 2014, he threw for 2,537 yards with 40 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions, plus 433 yards on the ground with another 5 scores. They went 15-0, state champs, national champs. As a junior, 2015, he threw for 2,608 yards with 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, plus 608 yards on the ground with another 9 scores. State champs, national champs. Then as a senior, as documented on the show QB1, dude throws for 2,362 yards with 41 touchdowns and only one 41 touchdowns and only one interception. Plus, y'all ain't ready for this, bro. 1,257 yards on the ground with another 21 scores. He was running up the numbers, bro. Damn. And oh yeah, I almost forgot. State champs, national champs. That's the three-peat. Bro, that means for his entire high school career at Bishop Gorman, his record as a starter is 45-0 with 3 straight championships. 7,500 passing yards, like 113 times in that painted area back there. Like, what the bro? That's nuts. Also in 2016, his senior year, he won Gatorade Football Player of the Year and USA Today Offensive Player of the Year. And at this point, his move to Bishop Gorman can really no longer be questioned. It was a massive success. And not only that, I gotta point out one more thing. So when he made the decision to go to Bishop Gorman, they had indeed won 5 straight state championships, right? Now, according to bishopgorman.org, they won state titles in 07, 09, 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013. But it's actually not until Tate got there in 2014 that you see all these years start popping up twice. You see what I'm saying? Those state titles turned into national titles. And there were obviously other factors and other players who greatly contributed to this. But you can't tell me that it's insignificant that the only national championship years on here were all the years that Tate Martell was the starting quarterback. That's pretty damn insane, man. The dude got talent and you can't take that away from him. I'm still trying to get over that high school record. That is nuts. Martell Tate was legitimately a great high school quarterback. He was living up to all the hype and, like I said earlier, even surpassing it. But despite all of that, Tate's career at Bishop Gorman didn't actually end on the best of notes. Basically, once the season was over, Tate, like a lot of prospects, wanted to get that quick start on the college level. Unfortunately for him, Bishop Gorman does not allow for early graduation. So he had to transfer to another school called Desert Pines just so that he could graduate early. Seems like a lot of paperwork over something so simple, and I'm not 100% sure why a powerhouse school like Bishop Gorman doesn't allow something like this. You'd think early graduation would come up all the time, and unless you want to miss that initial spring training on the college level, you kinda need to graduate early. But Tate did what he had to do, transferred, graduated early, got to Ohio State. But college football, like it is for a lot of these 5-star recruits, would end up being a completely different monster. He concluded his high school career as the number 2 ranked dual threat quarterback in his class, right behind Tua, who's currently a starting quarterback in the NFL, and right in front of Kellen Mond, the guy who ended up taking that Texas A&M scholarship that Tate left on the table, and he was the Vikings' 3rd round pick in 2021. Anyway, in 2017, Tate joined the Ohio State Buckeyes, but when he got there, for the first time ever, he wasn't even close to being the best quarterback in the QB room. And not only that, he was surrounded by guys like JT Barrett, a phenomenal leader and a consummate pro, even in college. Dwayne Haskins, the prototype at the time, easily the most physically talented out of the whole group, and Joe Burrow, the dude with every single quarterback intangible known to man cranked up to 1,000, plus pinpoint accuracy and a mean streak. Bro, that room was stacked, and the fact that the guy who turned out to be the best pro out of all of them had to transfer to LSU just to get on the field, like, that should tell you how competitive it was. But oddly enough, despite varying success once they got there, every single one of them made it to the NFL. Well, all but one of them, that is. Now, there's some questions about how seriously Tate actually approached things. There's actually this one infamous, somewhat obscure clip of Burrow and JT Barrett just looking like real workmen, going about the business of being real quarterbacks, you know? Meanwhile, Tate is there playing around. He then gets jacked up by JT, and Burrow looks like he wants to still off dude, cause that's how seriously they approach the game. And Tate, unfortunately, as talented as he was, dude just wasn't on that same level mentally, and he just didn't have that same mindset. And when people talk about the mental side of the game, they usually think I'm talking about intelligence. I'm not talking about intelligence. In this case, I'm talking more about approach, discipline and attacking the process, as opposed to playing and joking around just trying to pass the time so that this process will hurry the hell up and you can get to the game with the screaming fans. And Joe actually had a great quote during his recent Super Bowl press run, and I can't help but wonder if his former teammate might have inadvertently kind of helped him to crystallize this idea. So basically, Joe was asked what advice he would give to the young athletes coming up, and here's what he said. I'd tell him, work in silence. Don't show everybody what you're doing. Let your game on Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night show all the work that you've put in. Don't worry about all that social media stuff. Back during those college days, these are words that Martell Tate would have likely either ignored or just turned his nose up at. After redshirting his first year, Martell was actually third on the depth chart over Burrow in 2018. What bar was Urban Meyer drinking at the time? Probably all of them, but still, you gotta give Tate his credit for hanging with these cats. Like, despite everything I just said, at this point he was right there, in position to really grab this thing by the horns. Also, I think the fact that Tate was more of a dual threat than anybody else in that room basically meant that he offered a skill set that they didn't otherwise have on the roster, so it's always good to bring something unique to the table. Now, if we're gonna be fair, when dude played significant snaps, he performed pretty damn well. Believe it or not, he actually still holds the record for highest completion percentage in a game after he went 10 for 10 against Rutgers. Yeah, that's completion percentage of 100, and he threw for 121 yards, including a 51-yard bomb to scary Terry McLaurin, so you gotta show him love for that. Also, in that same game, dude rushed for just under 100 yards, including a 47-yard touchdown run, bro. That was a hell of a game, and he really showed some explosive playmaking ability, the same stuff that you saw in high school. And the only other time he got to throw double-digit passes in a game at Ohio State was a few weeks later versus Tulane. And in that one, he went 10 for 14 for 115 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. And I get that those were inferior opponents, but these were the only opportunities he had. And bro, when he was out there, the man really did his thing. You also got to keep in mind he was a redshirt freshman at the time, which takes me all the way back to this dude had a lot of talent, bro. He just picked the wrong school. And that's not a knock on Ohio State. It's a shout out to Ohio State for having all them damn quarterbacks, bro. Like, people forget how cold JT Barrett was in college. People forget how cold Dwayne Haskins was in college, man. But I really feel like if Tate would have picked a place that was gonna get him on the field, he could have had a completely different college career. Now, I still don't think he would have ever been a good NFL quarterback. That's just my opinion. But in college, he could have went off at the right place. So in 2019, it seemed like everything had opened up for Tate. JT Barrett was long gone. Joe Burrow had moved on to LSU, and Dwayne Haskins was a first-round pick. It was finally Tate's time to shine. But that's when one racist Georgia Bulldog baseball player named Adam Sasser just ruined it all. If you don't recall, Adam Sasser was caught yelling racial slurs towards Justin Fields during a Georgia football game. Now, Justin was already sitting behind Jake Fromm, who had some interesting comments of his own leak a year or two later, but that's beside the point. Justin was sitting behind Fromm, so there's a pretty good chance he was leaning towards transferring anyway. But Adam up in the stands drinking was absolutely the last straw. So in 2019, Tate Martell, who had made it through this gauntlet of quarterbacks, realized something. The gauntlet actually never ends. There's always gonna be another 1, 2, 3 cold quarterbacks at Ohio State that you gotta beat out. And in 2019, Justin Fields announced his intention to transfer to the Ohio State. And of course, the first social media quarterback, Martell Tate, wasn't about to look bad on the gram. Well, actually, he did kind of end up looking bad, but here's what he posted. Word of advice: don't swing and miss, especially not your second time. But that happened on December 22nd. Then, only 8 days later, when he was asked if he planned to transfer, Martell Tate had yet another quote for him. Why would I leave for somebody who hasn't put a single second into this program yet? I put 2 years of working my ass off into something that I've been praying for and dreaming for my whole life. To just run from somebody that hasn't put a single second into workouts or anything like that and doesn't even know what the program is all about, there's no chance. Now again, that statement was made on December 30th. By January 10th, bro, my boy Martell was in the transfer portal. Dude was out of there. Now, while we can all find the humor in that little story, because it is funny, let's take a second to look at this from Martell Tate's point of view. Imagine, like he said, working your ass off to get that #1 spot, getting bullied by Barrett and Burrow, getting completely outshined by Haskins, and you last through all the smoke, and then all of a sudden, this man Justin Fields chooses you. He looked at you and was like, you know what? I can go to his school and just, and I know you thinking beast mode Justin Fields, but this wasn't that Justin Fields just yet. This was Justin Fields he was the lead guy in QB1 the second season. He was already the man, don't get it twisted. But he was coming from a situation where he was stuck behind Jake Fromm, yet another QB1 quarterback. And Tate looking like, okay, you over there with another guy from my season who I'm better than. Like, of course, he feel like he better than Jake Fromm, and he probably is more talented. But now you gonna look over here, single me out, and come attack what you're perceiving as the weak link. Now, how would you not take offense to that if you was Tate Martell? Like, I would have took offense to it, bro. I would have absolutely took offense. Not saying I would have responded like he did, because I'm a little bit more measured than that, but I would have felt like that, you know what I'm saying? But with all of that said, I think more people would have respected it if he had actually stayed there and fought for the job. Like he said, he was already in the program. He already knew the playbook. He already had a lot of things going for him. Like, at this point, this was his turf. So to come out and make those bold statements, and then not even 2 weeks later, you just run from the fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't even want the smoke. So he transfers to Miami, files for and is granted a hardship waiver. Now, he was granted the hardship waiver because Ohio State had a lot of crazy stuff going on at the time with Urban Meyer. And the waiver meant that he didn't have to sit out a year. He could play immediately at Miami. So it's like, okay, cool. Looks like he landed on his feet. He's at another school that gets that spotlight, whether they win it or not. If they just win a few games, people are going to notice you at Miami. So it's looking like, okay, he landed on his feet. But then he loses the quarterback competition to redshirt freshman Jaron Williams. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much when Martell Tate's football career ended. It pretty much ended right there. After that situation, he ended up switching to wide receiver, only to be ineffective, and then switched back to quarterback in 2020. Now a redshirt junior, he ends up getting suspended from the first game of the season, and then shortly afterwards, he decides to opt out for the rest of the year. This is that first season after the pandemic hit, so you can opt out. After that, he transferred a third time. This time he went to UNLV, where he only ever played in a few games, completing 2 of 6 passes for 27 yards in his entire career at the school, which was very short. After nursing a foot injury and a hand injury and some other nagging stuff, and just having transferred so many times and still not ever becoming a starting college quarterback, on January 18, 2022, Tate Martell announced that he was retiring from the game of football for good, as he walked away from the game that he'd played since he was 7 years old. Now 24 years old, Tate Martell has began to mature, and it's very possible that after a few years go by, dude could figure it out. Because he came from a good financial situation, he's gonna have a little bit more time to figure it out than some other people. And hey, you can't get mad at him for that. That just is what it is. That's what he was born into. Maybe at some point he decides to go play in the XFL or the USFL, and he can honestly make a lot of money through social media and sponsorship/endorsements. I actually think he'd be great for one of those leagues if he was gonna take it seriously, because a lot of times these guys who are just really big stars, like better known for being stars than they are for playing football, a lot of times they think they're bigger than those types of leagues, so they might go take a quick bag, but they don't really take it seriously, Meanwhile, you got other cats over there scrapping and clawing, and they fighting for they football life, it's more important to them. So if he does decide to do it, hopefully he doesn't go over there the wrong way, Now, it's also possible that I'm making another one of these videos in a year or two because things have gone left once again. But my point is, the kid still has a whole lot of life to live. And we all make mistakes and do dumb shit at many points in our lives. But because this whole thing is public, we're all aware of it. So, you gotta give them some time to figure it out. The age we live in today, comebacks are more prevalent than ever. Because not only does time heal all, but also our memories and attention spans are pretty damn short. Matter of fact, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you and shout out to you for being able to focus on something for more than a few seconds. In closing, Tate Martell spent most of his football career in the spotlight, but when things went left, that spotlight that he once enjoyed became a burning hot reminder of what he was supposedly destined to become. But perhaps, just maybe, the road that he's currently traveling was actually his destiny all along.